Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this amazing panel with three amazing CEOs who I will introduce you to in a moment. I am Kay Firth-Butterfield. I am CEO of Good Tech Advisory and the former head of AI at the World Economic Forum. So I think this is my 7th Davos, but I know there are people on this panel who have come to more. I was the world's first Chief AI Ethics Officer back in 2014. And so one of the things that really excites me about this Davos is everybody's talking about AI and governance of AI. And I've always seen the governance of AI as simply being one of the most important ways of getting your AI right and therefore getting the right product out of the door. So we're going to talk about AI and business, and particularly AI and growth. And I'd like to start by inviting our panel to introduce themselves. And we'll start with Mihir.
Thank you. Good. Mihir Shukla, CEO and Chairman, Automation Anywhere. We are an AI and automation company. We combine multiple AI technologies and automation together to what we call create digital workers. These digital workers assist people, and sometimes they run end-to-end processes as well, where it could be automated. Today, we run about 300 million digital workers on our platform, and it is on a path to get to 1 billion by next year. So if anybody thinks that this wave is yet to come, put in perspective, about this time next year, 1 billion people worth of work would happen on our platform, and that's the path we are on already. Many interesting possibilities, certain risks that we have to manage, and looking forward to having that conversation.
Superb, thank you. Arvind.
Thank you. Arvind Krishna, I have the privilege of leading IBM, and we've been doing AI for about 20 years, give or take. Super, super excited about the possibilities, and I'll stop there.
Thank you, and Manisha
Sharma, North America CEO for Accenture. I will just echo what they said.
Okay, super. Well, thank you for those introductions, gentlemen. And this panel really brings together the two themes that we're looking at Davos this year, AI and growth. And it highlights these two challenges, which we shouldn't look at in isolation in our view. Because often we find that multiple problems have one common solution. And Mihir, you brought this panel together. Thank you very much for that. What was your vision in bringing us together today?
I wanted, AI is a broad topic, and there's so many dimensions to it everybody's talking about. I wanted to cover a smaller but very, very specific slice of it. The first is combine AI with growth, two of the main topics at WAF. And growth for our companies, for our societies, for everybody, and what an important driver it is for the next 2 decades growth in on our planet. The second piece is this is a panel by the CEO for the CEO, and we thought we'll talk about specific applications within enterprises. While AI has vast range of implications. But in an enterprise context, there are so many things happening today, and they're actionable. And so bring that focus to this topic. To be clear, we will not talk about AI love bots and the ethics behind it. That's for a different panel. The objective was to keep it to enterprises.
Super, thank you. Well, let's kick off the conversation. But as I'm sure you'll all have questions, we're actually going to have this conversation for about 30 minutes and then give you 15 minutes of these CEOs' precious time to ask your questions. So be thinking about those questions as we're talking. So there's a lot of hype around AI, and it's everywhere in Davos, and everybody's changing their name from .com to .ai. I want to ask you as a start, why is AI crucial to growth in your companies and for your customers? Mihir.
I'll start. So if you think about our societies, we have two main growth drivers: the more people working in the workforce, and productivity increase with help of lots of technologies. For the known human history, about 50% growth came from more people working and 50% growth came from productivity increase. First time in human history, there are no more people working. So overall, at a world level, certain countries have exceptions, but world level, there is 3% decline in working age population. So this is the first time for human race to operate societies with half of the growth driver is gone. And it is not going to be there for next 20 years because we know exactly how many future workforces are in the system. Which means you have to, if you want to keep the growth growing, your productivity increase is your primary driver. Now, growth is essential, but growth is essential for peace also. Because when there is not enough growth, there is more unrest in the society, there is less to go around, more riots. Look around you, everywhere in countries. So this is a need for enterprises, but demand from the society as well, that we find a way to accelerate growth of every enterprises. And AI comes at an opportune time. If you use it responsibly, this is a great tool to have to get us out of the problem.
Thank you. And Arvind, obviously the same question to you, but also given your wealth of experience in AI, I wanted to also ask you, what do we mean by intelligent when we're talking about AI?
Yeah. So on the first one, look, I'm going to take a slightly different stance on this. Growth in the world is never linear. Okay, it's not really linear, it's really compounding, but it's not smooth. You tend to get these big bumps. If I go over the history for the last 300 years, there aren't that many moments which create these big bumps. You can count maybe 10 if you want to be generous. You can count 5 or 6 if you want to be more strict about it. Steam engine, definitely. You can talk about railways, steel, all put together is a whole second one. Clearly, semiconductors or what is called ICT is another one. I think AI is just like one of those. Now, those who take advantage of it get a disproportionate share of that growth. So growth is not smooth, growth is not linear. So if you look at the steam engine, certainly Western Europe as leveraging it got disproportionate growth. If you look at GDP growth from 1600, where it was much more evenly distributed, to 1800, because 1700 was the steam engine, Western Europe got a disproportionate share. So who's going to take advantage of AI? And now it's not just nations, it's also companies. So those companies who embrace AI will be able to get faster growth than those who do not. Partly because of the point Mihir made on the demographics. You can't just hire more people. So that's going to be a big one. So that is one whole thing that is going on, and that I really urge the audience to think about. Is this a source of fundamental competitive advantage? The second piece, which was intelligent. Well, it's intelligent because if technology can predict for you, can aid in decision making, that's, I think, what we call intelligent, as opposed to just automation, as opposed to just rules. So certainly technology, computing in general, can do things much faster than humans can. That's just the nature of it. I think it becomes intelligent if it can help you in prediction and decision making. And the reason it's so exciting, these were outside the norm of what computing could do for the last 70 years. So if it's outside the norm, that means there is more that you can do with it, and that's kind of to open up your imagination on what's possible.
You mentioned just as a quick follow-up, Arvind, you mentioned the disparate impact of AI around the world, and you run a multinational company. Are you seeing customers from around the world, or are they mainly congregating in, for example, the global north?
We are seeing customers from around the world, but if I was to look at it, I would say that the digital or numerical literacy of the country is probably a better indicator for how much they embrace AI than a pure global north or south. Why I say that? I'll take a country that is normally put into the global south, Brazil. Okay, but Brazil, is it really in the global south, or it just happens to be part of it? But Brazil has embraced AI dramatically, just as this thing. But Brazil is a very educated, very numerically literate country, so they could see the possibilities and jump on it. And so that's an example of it. So it's distributed, but maybe in a different way than pure north-south.
Super, thank you very much. And Manish, just to repeat the original question for you, why is AI critical to growth?
I think if you look at what is happening around this and the hysteria, which it always is caused by a new tech, right? If I just look at Gen AI, it has made AI accessible to everyone. It is about, I always say, a combination of talent, trust, and technology. And I think if you combine the three T's, that is what you are seeing right now. Most of the folks, and I think enterprises are looking this as a cost reduction stuff. But I think in our case, we have been singularly focused around value created, which is around the revenue uplift. So I think this is probably one of the biggest accelerators for enterprise growth in the coming decade. Now, the only point I'll mention last is that if we are companies who are able to execute and deploy at scale beyond proof of concepts, use cases, they will get the growth out of this. Otherwise, this will just be, another this thing, because even some basic automation stuff, which we have been talking for 10 years, has not been adopted by companies in a mass way. So this could be like another hysteria we will create without doing this. And we are doing 700 as we speak engagements on Gen AI. They're deploying at scale. But last year, there was nobody deploying at scale. In Q1 of ours, 10 got adopted, and we believe another 100 will adopt at scale. That is going to be the big growth play here.
And talking about growth play, all three of you are big users of AI, as well as offering AI solutions. And so I wondered whether you could share with us, how does your organization use AI? And tell us how it's making your organization better. And then perhaps give us some examples of customers that are using it. And I'll just reverse the order. Manish.
So I think, let me start with us. Because I think it's always good because I can talk freely about it. The others I will talk constrained, right? But I think in Accenture, we believe that deploying it at scale is what matters, right? So we have taken this across our enterprise in all our functions, HR, legal, finance, the way we run our place. I think Gen AI is getting embedded in that. And I'll give you one very clear example of what we did. All of us come from big companies. We have a lot of PowerPoints. We have a lot of Excels. We have a lot of stuff that we keep on doing, and we have arguments about data. About 9 months back, we have SAP, we have Workday, we have Salesforce. We created, and I'm now talking about actually applying and deploying Gen AI at scale. We created an enterprise data lake. On top of that, we deployed Gen AI. One single source of truth across 57 countries, across 730,000 people, deploying it at scale. All the queries on this, everything on what we call as Enterprise Navigator. One single source of truth. No PowerPoints, no Excel spreadsheets, reporting cut by 50%. That is kind of deploying Gen AI at scale. If I look at our clients and the clients that I can mention, which are already in the public, this thing is Best Buy, where we are deploying Gen AI at scale. McDonald's, where we are, changing the experience while buying a burger, right? I think, but we are working out there. We got recently announced our partnership with Unilever, where we are deploying Gen AI at scale. So you've got, real big examples. And I think maybe pick one of them is around customer contact center. One of the biggest disruptions that is going to be happening is around the customer contact center stuff. Just imagine the power of, you got like thousands of agents who are doing this. You're having the transcripts of this. You have got online real-time education, coaching of every single person, how to upsell, how to cross-sell. And that is where you talk about revenue uplift. Most of the folks are still talking about how can I reduce 5 people, 5 FTs, 2 FTs, and all those things. But this is about growth. And I think that is where we are seeing the huge power, whether it is in us or our clients, which we have 700 of them that we are working on.
Arvind.
So let me begin with the word productivity as opposed to efficiency, and then get to the very explicit examples. If a company is more productive, many people jump to it needs fewer workers. Never been true in the history of the world. Sure. If a company is more productive, it generally means it can produce a higher quality product at a lower cost than its competitors. which implies you will generally gain market share, which generally implies you will need more people, not fewer. So this is where I think the revenue statement of Gen AI comes from. Very explicit examples. We believe that Gen AI is going to help us take a couple of $2 billion out of our expense base and reapply that into areas on innovation and client service, which means that our clients will be happier and we'll make more revenue. What are some examples? We've taken our HR service center. So not the HR specialist, the person giving advice on who's better, who's got a better emotional fit, who's got a better, is still needed. But how about transactions, meaning give somebody a raise, move somebody, worry about cross-border taxation? Those things can be automated away, and those centers are going from numbers like 500, 600 down to 70 or 80. That big a difference. If I take customer service, Manish mentioned contact centers. I believe that 50 to 75% of those will be made either self-service or answered directly by AI at a higher quality. If you get to 90%, maybe you get some hallucinations. That's why we say 50 to 75. Coding, code deployment, programmer productivity, you're seeing numbers anywhere from 20 to 60%. Why do I say that? Even if an AI assistant writes all the code, you still got to spend half your time in design sessions and wondering about what the requirements are. So it's never going to be 100. So I think 20 to 60 is kind of a reasonable range, depending upon the cognitive order of the tasks. So to us, those are real examples. 3 very quick client examples. NatWest in the UK, using it for their contact centers and to answer tough questions, both from employees and from clients. One of our big partners, SAP, probably everybody knows the name. They're beginning to leverage it in terms of helping their clients navigate where may a report or a query lie. And so you begin to use AI as an interface into a complicated system, very similar to Manisha's example of their internal one, to go make progress for their clients. So big benefits inside and massive benefits for our clients.
Okay. Let me start by saying that you might think that being a technology company, it might be easier for us to do this transformation. At least not true for us. Because we are global organizations across many countries, 25 to be precise in our case. And our departments, whether it's finance, HR, contact centers, they just look like yours. So when we have to transform ourselves, we have to challenge our own assumptions. And so we deployed it in every single one of our departments. But it wasn't easy. We had doubts, we had concerns. Turns out if you try it out, some of those concerns are overblown in an enterprise context. In a consumer world, there are many other things. But we don't have children working in our organization. If somebody doesn't behave, we can fire them. It's a very governed organization, right? So the data sets is limited, right? And I also believe that, like when we deployed it in our customer contact center, today, if any of, I know many of your customers, if you engage with us, 60% of calls today are answered by Gen AI in our organization. And at all points, customers have a choice to talk to us, just 60% choose not to. Our SLA went from 8 hours to 2 minutes. Cost went down 40%. The quality of standard went up in across countries. It was just positive across the board. We automated about 80% of all HR transaction work. We enabled salespeople with Gen AI to improve sales productivity by 25%. We transformed finance. It has been a phenomenal experience for us. Customers, we have a cloud system, so we can often see how many people are deploying Gen AI. Today, we see about 3,000 of our customers are doing something with it. Out of that, about 400 or so are getting ready for the big scale, and some of them already are. So I'll share one example. You mentioned Brazil. Petrobras, one of the large oil and gas company in Brazil, is our customer. They saved $120 million in 3 weeks. This is publicly available information. And this year, they are on a path to save $1 billion. And next year, up to $3 billion. And their goal is to reinvest that in a renewable energy, of course, for all the reasons we know. So these are huge transformation taking place. I have been doing technology my entire professional life. I'll leave them to judge. 120 million in 3 weeks? I have not heard it before. This is real.
Super, thank you very much. And Arvind and I think, first met in 2016 when we were thinking about some of the governance issues for President Obama, so many years ago now. And so, with all the plus sides that you've been saying, there are some risks. And I wondered how you and your customer, and you were helping your customers, strike that balance between innovation and addressing some of the risks of AI.
Yeah, thanks, Kay. Look, just think about this first in a very simple, intuitive way. AI learns from all the data that you use to train it. Doesn't matter, deep learning, LLMs, that's just labeled, unlabeled, it learns from all the data. So if there is an inherent bias or flaw in the data, the AI will learn that bias and that flaw. The problem is when you have humans, only a few humans may make a certain mistake. If it is AI, then the AI will repeat that mistake with infinite precision and speed across. So that is the first, I'll call it, that's the simplest layer of governance you got to think about. How do you avoid drift? How do you avoid bias? We try not to play oracles. So in most countries, there are laws which says which biases are not allowed. So we try to stick to those. Gender bias, skin color bias, ethnicity bias are pretty common in most countries around the globe, right? Just to mention 3, but there's many more that you can think about. In the United States, I'll tell you there's 15 that's enshrined in law, not hundreds, 15. I think in Europe, they may be between 15 and 20. So those you can go check for and go do. The second layer, and then I'll stop, is you got to think about the data. What data are you using to train your AI? Not just because of bias, but because of issues around fair use, around copyright. Are you plagiarizing? Is it leaking out? Because there were a number of experiments done. If your models are big enough, you can have enough queries that effectively draw the data out, and that may not have been the intent of the people who gave you permission to use it, so you got to be careful about it. And last, you got to make sure that nobody's hacking your models to make them actually purposefully corrupt and drift. So just a few things to think about. I mean, the industry is working on all of these. I wouldn't say it's perfect. The first and the second, kind of, a lot of it is sort of user beware. But the second and third, there's also work going on in the industry to help you mitigate those risks, Abhay.
Thank you. And Manish, you've been very successful in your responsible AI campaigns and actually sort of proving you can make money out of this as well. So innovation as well as responsibility.
Yeah, I think let me get back to what I started with. This is about tech, trust, and talent. Always come back to the 3 principles, right? Means you got to have the talent. Our CHRO, our iconic CHRO, Alan Shook is here in the audience, right? We have been working on the talent agenda. But one thing which we all did jointly as a team was, before we started, and this is our recommendation to our clients, do you have a responsible AI policy? Do you have a responsible AI officer? So even 9 months back, right, we actually appointed Arnab, as Accenture's, responsible AI officer. And we are doing this with all our clients. Because people will say, come, let's do use cases, give me this POCs, can you show me this and make a video out of this? That is interesting. There are 523 models available, more than 2 models being generated every single day. Enough tools are out there. So this is about trust. Yesterday, I was with another client, and we were using their data to, one of the biggest things you are seeing is changes in the way we do marketing and content creation. Every time we were, and you can put the keywords and try to create an ad through Gen AI, there was a bias coming in. Every single ad had a male person who was doing this. Now that is the inherent challenge with this. And that is why I always we have been really, really vocal about this is, do not get completely caught up in the technology and everything else if you do not have a responsible AI policy within your company. And I'll give you some more examples because we have like really gone into deployment at massive scale. We can do, we are working with, insurance companies. We are working across the globe on this, right? Underwriting. Regulators are asking when the AI models comes out, is the output consistent? Is the output, can you explain the output that is coming out? Otherwise, it will not get regulatory approvals. So there are biases, there are regulatory stuff that we need to kind of think through. So my submission to all of you is, as you embark on this journey, as you embark on deploying at scale rather than doing POCs, please ensure that you're starting with a responsible AI policy. What are the do's and don'ts? What are the guardrails? How it works? Otherwise, it's like, for me, at a point of time, I had 20 clients where my job was to remove all the robots that they had put in the last 5 years. Because what they had done was they had automated bad processes. And they had actually engineered their company to fail because they had completely just whatever processes they had, without any re-engineering of the processes, they just automated. Again, part of the overall theme that we want to kind of move on, right? So responsible AI, doing the right stuff, re-engineering, having the right talent. Because we have got something called as a TQ, where we have got 12 modules. We have introduced the Gen AI module. But talent, we are reskilling, we are spending 1 billion out of our 3 billion investment only on training. Because if you train the people, they can think responsibly about it, right? They have to be educated about the technology. So I think I'll keep on pivoting back to technology, trust, talent. If you do only one of the 3 pillars, it's going to be a very tricky journey.
So Mihir, I promised everybody that we would give an opportunity for questions, but I just wanted to bring this back to you. The AI and innovation, it sounds as if that should be built upon responsible AI, listening to our other panelists.
Yeah, it has to be. Responsible AI is very important. But it's a solvable problem. It is an evolving problem, but it's a solvable problem. I think it requires a framework and a certain way to think and a constant check and reviewing your systems and policies. So for example, we learned that whether we provide that or not, our employees and customers' employees were using generative AI without telling anybody anyway. And it was more risky that way. So by creating certain well-defined flows where you can only interact in a certain way and you're not allowed to take the entire email and copy paste and send all information out. So by defining and engaging it at an early stage, you can prevent things going out. Then another thing we did is we started measuring inputs and outputs of out of all 3,000 customers, all the requests that goes in and out. So we were able to measure if any model started behaving wackily. So all of these structures, when you put around it, it is possible to operate, but it requires awareness, and you have to constantly evaluate if it is showing any sign of a bias. But we'll get started in that process, and you will discover.
Absolutely, get started and start to innovate, but and know your guardrails. Super. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your inputs so far. And as we move to the audience, I just want you to keep in mind what would have been my final question, which was, what are the developments in the future of AI that really excite you and you can see coming down the pipe? But let me go to the audience now. Do we have any questions? Yes, the gentleman here. There's a box.
Okay, how does this work? Hello, firstly, thank you for the insightful discussion, very enlightening. You highlighted how generative AI is being used and it could challenge and change the way effectively enterprises operate. Now, generative AI is probably the first wave of the life-changing inventions which are coming, but this is the first, probably many more are yet to come. And in that context, my question is, do you think as the pace of innovation increases, what should be the role of the big companies like IBM, Accenture, or even Automation Anywhere to invent such new things, going beyond using such inventions, which is great, which we need to do. But how would you take that with investing more in R&D and inventing even newer technologies, newer disruptive things?
Well, look, I'll speak for IBM, not for the other two. We fundamentally believe we have to innovate. I can go through a long sequence of things that we have done the innovation on. And if I go back to the early eras of AI, I would say Deep Blue, Jeopardy were examples of us spending a lot of money to prove, in that sense, it was feasibility. Can the technology work at all at scale? So we went ahead and did that. Today, the amount we invest on doing our own large language models, you would say, why do you bother? Others do them. Well, we do them because we want to offer indemnity to our clients. And it allows us freedom then. If it is our own, then it's intellectual property we can choose to put out into open source or to leverage for other purposes. But I can go on and on. This actually almost goes into the question that Kay was asking. How about multimodal? How about applying AI to chemistry? How about applying AI and doing work on neurosymbolic so that you can put physics and knowledge in? We are fundamentally committed that we have to go do that. We tend to do that with university partners often. ETH was up here, I think, just before we started. That's an example of a partnership, but I can go on. At lunch, I was with the Stanford AI Institute, the Center for Human-Centric AI. We have a lab on the MIT campus. So this is a fundamental commitment that we have to move the boundary of the knowledge forward. We do that in collaboration with academics. We don't want to do it alone. But we also then have to decide how do we monetize some of it and how do we give some of it back to the community.
I think, if I just were to quickly add, I think for us, we invest about $3 billion in R&D, right? So that is one big piece. But I think our approach has always been around training. We have a lot of focus around training, and which keeps on giving us innovations. We did our cloud patent in the early 2000s. And I don't know how many of you have seen, but I will request you to look at the technology vision that we launched in Accenture just, I think, last week, because you will get where we are going in the future. So one is training for our folks. Second is acquisitions. We are an acquisitive company, and we continue to kind of get folks with very different sets, different products, different this thing coming into our piece. And partnerships, what Arvind mentioned, I think similar stuff, we are doing with virtually, quite a few universities on this. But for us, it is also about execution. There are lots of innovations happening. You don't see deployment in scale. But for us, that is the key theme. And I think I want to kind of ask one question back to the audience here, right? Automation will destroy human mankind and any jobs being created. When was this statement made?
1700, sorry. I'm not an audience.
It was 1776.
That's
so,
right.
we talk a lot about this. Actually, all the new opportunities that come, every time some new technology is introduced, you get a total new change in the way the new jobs are being created, right? So innovations keep on happening. We will do it with our three-pronged strategy, and jobs are not going away because new jobs are getting created because of this technology.
I'll answer. I'll say if you compare this kind of a wave to an internet, and if you go back, this is at a stage 95, 96 internet time. I know there's lots of hypes about various technology, but if you go back to 95, 96, I think most of us would agree that internet as a technology was underhyped. Some companies were overhyped, some were under. But in hindsight, you could see internet was underhyped today when we live our life. If you keep that in mind, if you think Gen AI is overhyped, I promise you it is underhyped. Because some of the technology we are working on. So for example, our belief is that the future of generative AI is not generating content, because it's a small part of the economy. The future of generative AI is doing work, because work is a language and you can teach these models to do work. So we started this more than a year ago, where we were curious. We said, could we teach these models to do work? So we fed 150 million processes to this model. There's not a single human being on a planet with that kind of an exposure. So we were curious, what would this model learn and do? Today, it has come to a point, we call it process Gen AI, our customers call it process GPT, where you could, in a natural language, talk to this system, and it will execute complex workflows without any other input often. So we went to a bank and gave the 500,000 mortgage applications to the system and said, go process it. You know how to run a mortgage process. It processed entire year's worth of volume in 2 days. Right? The Petrobras example that I mentioned, 120 million benefit in 3 weeks. I think this process Gen AI models that would begin to understand and start executing work represents that, doing work is 33% of the world's GDP. This is yet to come. There are so many things like this you will see. I'll leave you with one thought. The biggest innovation of human race is not wheel, it is language. Because language is what makes everything else possible. All innovations, everything you see, we coming together, collaborating it, solving it, innovation. And this thing has fundamentally mastered language. From that, you will see tons and tons of innovation like Process GPT.
That reminds me of when I was when my child was young and she was learning to read, and I said, you have to learn to read because it will give you access to everything and everything you ever want to do. So I have a question over there.
Thank you very much.
Throw it.
That's it.
There you go.
My name is Mihailo. I'm a Master of Public Policy candidate at the University of Oxford with background in advising Ukrainian government in digital transformation and UN on Sustainable Development Agenda. So thank you very much for your insights. That was incredible. My question is regarding the AI regulation. Like, for none of us, it's a surprise that we see the potential of AI first, but for many governments, they also see different calculus, the risk for the employment, the risk for the digital literacy of their people. So how do you see the right calibrated approach of delivering message across the various regulators that potential of AI overweights its risk, and how to prevent AI to get regulated to death?
I'll start. I think just 2 hours ago, I was in one of the sessions with government officials, many of providers, workers' union, including writers and actors and speech writers and all kinds of people. And answer has to come together, right? Because I think the first thing we have to do is we have to listen to people, not dismiss their concern, not just get on an agenda that you wanted to serve, but understand their concern, and find an inclusive answer that everybody needs. I think the regulation steps that many governments have taken, US, Europe in particular, are the steps in the right direction. I think they will continue to evolve because you don't know what this is, so you don't know how to regulate it yet to some extent. But it will evolve with it. I think that they just, when we started, we said this is about growth. So you need regulation, for sure, enough of them, but don't stop the growth, because we need growth as well for it to create many, many more jobs. It's an important topic, and the solutions will come three, four multiple ways working together.
Thank you, Mihir. I'm actually getting mixed messages because I think I've got 2 minutes left, in which case, Arvind and you both have 1 minute, but also it's saying time is up. But go for 1 minute if you can.
I'll let it make it 30 seconds. Look, it's very simple. Do we need guardrails? Yes, no doubt about it. However, early and overburdensome regulation of any technology or any area will make those nations uncompetitive. An idea once out of the box is not going to come back. So I think that is the firm boundary that I think especially Europe in general, I'll caution, has to walk. Otherwise, you're just going to pass all the benefits on to other continents.
So I think I will not repeat any of those things. I will just come back to the point around trust is the most important part around the tech and the talent part, because it's just an important aspect, because we keep on forgetting that, right? I will also leave you with one, message in your mind. Great to be excited about this, but you need, the cloud is the enabler, data is the driver, and Gen AI will be the differentiator for companies who deploy it at scale.
Superb. Thank you very much, gentlemen.